Everyone, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in the Haven, Hythe, Kent, southeast coast of England, where I'm living in this little flat with Abhay Das Brahmachari, Rasika Shiromani Prabhu, and Radharaman Prabhu. And we are so lucky because there's no politics. The atmosphere is clean as a bean and very sweet, a mode of goodness atmosphere. In the meantime, the world's going, continuing to go crazy. So not to worry, because we're so fortunate, whatever position you're in, whatever situation you're in, we know who God is. And we know what pleases Him. And there's very few people in this whole planet who knows that. Therefore, if you ever feel any, discouraged in any way about anything, just think of this, how fortunate we are to be able to sit here and hear the depth of knowledge that is being given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lucky us. Hare Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he knew how nice the Caitanya-caritämrta is. So he wrote this beautiful poetic glorification. He said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. Think you got problems? If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after the flood has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Makes the pandemic look like a little puddle. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. And a little tag at the end to my first introduction. There's people fighting in this world whether or not to wear a mask in the middle of a pandemic that is right now killing the same number of people every day that were killed in the 9/11 Twin Towers disaster in New York. Every day. And it's projected that it'll be like that for the next 2-3 months. Every day for the next 2 or 3 months, the same number of people or more will be killed by this pandemic that was killed at 9/11 in New York, which changed the whole world. Now, there are countries such as Taiwan, New Zealand, South Korea, and others who actually everyone agreed to wear the mask. And guess what? There's no more COVID there. It works. It's a fact. But the developed West has become so intelligent, they cannot agree on a set of facts that are clear, and therefore a good percentage of the population are refusing to wear the masks. Stupid is what stupid does. Here we are. Lord Chaitanya is explaining to Prakashananda Saraswati the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with text 150. Srimad Bhagavatam gives a direct information of the mellow derived from service to Krishna. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is above all other Vedic literatures. 151. Nigamakalpataror galitam palam shukamukad amrita drava samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam mahur aho rasika bhuvibabukaha. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedic literature, and it is considered the ripened fruit of the wish-fulfilling tree of Vedic knowledge. It has been sweetened by emanating from the mouth of Shukadev Goswami. You who are thoughtful and who relish mellows should always try to taste this ripened fruit. O thoughtful devotees, as long as you are not absorbed in transcendental bliss, you should continue tasting this Srimad Bhagavatam. And when you are fully absorbed in bliss, you should go on tasting its mellows forever. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 113. Text 153. We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who enjoy association with him relish hearing his pastimes at every moment. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.19. Text 153. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Prakashananda Saraswati, study Srimad Bhagavatam very scrutinizingly, then you will understand the actual meaning of the Brahma Sutra. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that without studying Srimad Bhagavatam, one cannot understand the purport of the Brahma Sutra, Vedanta Sutra, or the Upanishads. If one tries to understand Vedanta philosophy and the Upanishads without studying Srimad Bhagavatam, one will be bewildered, and construing a different meaning will gradually become an atheist or an impersonalist. How clear can it be? I'll read that last part again. If one tries to understand Vedanta philosophy and the Upanishads without studying Srimad Bhagavatam, one will be bewildered, and construing a different meaning will gradually become an atheist or an impersonalist. 154. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, always discuss Srimad Bhagavatam and constantly chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. In this way you will be able to attain liberation very easily, and you will be elevated to the enjoyment of love of Godhead. Doesn't that sound familiar? It's exactly what Prabhupada said to us. Text 155. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nashochati nakankshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything, he is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Purport. This is a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, 1854. We're just hearing one verse of the Bhagavatam and the Gita after another, after another, after another in this book. Because it puts it all together and gives the realization that we need. 156. Even a liberated soul, merged in the impersonal Brahman effulgence, is attracted to the pastimes of Krishna. He thus installs a deity and renders the Lord's service. Purport. This is a quotation from Shankaracharya's commentary on the Nrsinga Tapani Upanishad. 157. Shukadeva Goswami addressed Parikshit Maharaj, "My dear king, although I was fully situated in the transcendental position, I was nonetheless attracted to the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Therefore I studied Srimad Bhagavatam from my father." This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 219. Now this is an important verse because sometimes devotees think that Shukadeva Goswami just came out of the womb and then ran away. He did, but he was brought back by his father, Vyasadeva, put his disciples in different places in the forest where he was walking and would chant verses of the Bhagavatam that Shukadeva could hear. And he got attracted and he came back and he studied the whole Bhagavatam, memorized it. That's how he could speak it to Maharaj Parikshit and the world and to us in the world. Text 158. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulsi leaves and saffron from the lotus feet of the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead entered through the nostrils into the hearts of those sages, the Kumaras, they experienced a change in both body and mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:15-43. For an explanation, see Madhya-lila, chapter 17, text 142. Text 159. Atma ramas jamunayo nirgranta apyarukrame kurvant jahaitukim bhaktim kurvant jahaitukim bhaktim itam bhuta guno harihi. Those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by external material desires are also attracted to the loving service of Lord Sri Krishna, whose qualities are transcendental and whose activities are wonderful. Hari, the personality of Godhead, is called Krishna because he has such transcendentally attractive features. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.10. For an explanation, see Madhya-lila, chapter 24. Text 160. At this time, the Brahmana from the province of Maharashtra mentioned Lord Chaitanya's explanation of the Atmarama verse. 161. The Maharashtrian Brahmana stated that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already explained that verse in 61 ways. Everyone was astonished to hear this. 162. When all the people gathered there expressed the desire to hear again the 61 different meanings of the Atmarama Shloka, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again explained them. That's amazing. 163. When everyone heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation of the Aparama Shloka, everyone was astonished and struck with wonder. They concluded that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was none other than Lord Krishna himself. 164. After giving those explanations again, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arose and took his leave. All the people there offered their obeisances unto him and chanted the Mahamantra. 165. All the inhabitants of Kashi, Väränasi, began chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in ecstatic love. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they cried, sometimes they chanted, and sometimes they danced. 166. After this, all the Mayavadi sannyasis and learned scholars at Väränasi began discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered them. 167. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then returned to his residence with his personal associates. Thus he turned the whole city of Väränasi into another Navadvip, Nadia Nagar. Purport. Both Navadvip and Väränasi were celebrated for their highly educational activities. At the present time, these cities were all inhabited by great learned scholars, but Väränasi is especially a center for Mayavadi sannyasis who were learned scholars. However, unlike Navadvip, there are hardly any devotees in Väränasi. Consequently, a discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam was very rare in Väränasi. In Navadvip, such a discussion was quite ordinary. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Väränasi and turned Prakashananda Saraswati and his disciples into Vaisñavas, Väränasi became like Navadvip because so many devotees began discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. Even at the present moment, one can hear many discussions on Srimad Bhagavatam taking place on the banks of the Ganges. Many scholars and sannyasis gather there to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and perform Sankirtan. 168. Among his own associates, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu laughingly said, "I came here to sell my emotional, ecstatic love." 169. Although I came to Väränasi to sell my goods, there were no customers, and it appeared necessary for me to carry them back to my own country. 170. All of you were feeling unhappy that no one was purchasing my goods and that I would have to carry them away. Therefore, by your will only, I have distributed them without charging. Purport. When we began distributing the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Western countries, a similar thing happened. In the beginning, we were very much disappointed for at least 1 year because no one came forth to help this movement. But by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, some young boys joined this movement in 1966. Of course, we distributed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra without bargaining or selling. As a result, this movement has spread all over the world with the assistance of European and American boys and girls. We therefore pray for all the blessings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu upon all the devotees in the Western world who are spreading this movement. Text 171. All the Lord's devotees then said, "You have incarnated to deliver fallen souls. You have delivered them in the east and in the south, and now you are delivering them in the west. Text 172. Only Väränasi was left because the people there were against your missionary activities. Only Väränasi was left because the people there were against your missionary activities. Now you have delivered them, and we are all very happy. 173. After the news of these events was broadcast, everyone from the surrounding neighborhoods began to pour in to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 174. Hundreds of thousands of people came to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. There was no counting the number. Because the Lord's residence was very small, not everyone could see him. 175. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to take his bath in the Ganges and to see the temple of Vishweshwar, people would line up on both sides to see the Lord. 176. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu passed by the people, he would raise his arms and say, "Please chant Krishna. Please chant Hari." All the people received him by chanting Hare Krishna, and they offered their respects to him by this chanting. 177. In this way, for 5 days, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the people of Väränasi. Finally, on the next day, he became very eager to leave. 178. After rising very early on the 6th day, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu started to leave, and 5 devotees began to follow him. 179. These 5 devotees were Tapan Mishra, Raghunath, the Maharashtrian Brahmana, Chandrasekhar, and Paramananda Kirtaniya. 180. These 5 wanted to accompany Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to Jagannath Puri, but the Lord attentively bade them farewell. Text 181. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "If you want to see me, you may come later, but for the time being, I shall go alone to the Jharikanda forest." 182. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu advised Sanatana Goswami to proceed toward Vrindavan, and he informed him that his 2 brothers had already gone there. Text 183. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami, "All my devotees who go to Vrindavan are generally very poor. They each have nothing with them but a torn quilt and a small water pot. Therefore, Sanatan, you should give them shelter and maintain them." Purport. Following in the footsteps of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, we have constructed temples in both Vrindavan and Mayapur, Navadvip, just to give shelter to the foreign devotees coming here from Europe and America. Since the Hare Krishna movement started, many Europeans and Americans have been visiting Vrindavan, but they have not been properly received by any ashram or temple there. It is the purpose of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give them shelter and train them in devotional service. There are also many tourists eager to come to India to understand India's spiritual life, and the devotees in our temples, both in Vrindavan and in Navadvip, should make arrangements to accommodate them as far as possible. 184. After saying this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu embraced them all and began to proceed on his way, and they all fainted and fell down. 185. After some time, all the devotees got up and returned to their homes, very much grief-stricken. Sanatana Goswami proceeded toward Vrindavan alone. 186. When Rupa Goswami reached Mathura, he met Subhuti Roy on the banks of the Yamuna at a place called Dhruvagat. 187. Formerly, Subhuti Roy had been a big landholder in Gaudadesh, Bengal. Sayyada Hussain Khan was then a servant of Subhuti Roy. 188. Subhuti Roy put Hussain Khan in charge of digging a big lake, but once, finding fault with him, he struck him with a whip. 189. Later, Hussain Khan somehow or other was appointed Nawab by the central Muslim government. As a matter of obligation, he increased the opulences of Subhuti Roy. Text 190. Later, when the wife of Nawab, Sayyada Hussain Khan, saw the whip marks on his body, she requested him to kill Subhuti Roy. Hare Krishna. Better half, huh? 191. Hussain Khan replied, Subhuti Roy has maintained me very carefully. He was just like a father to me, he said. Now you are asking me to kill him. This is not a very good proposal. 192. As a last alternative, the wife suggested that the Nawab take away Subhuti Roy's caste and turn him into a Muslim. But Hussain Khan replied that if he did this, Subhuti Roy would not live. 193. This became a perplexing problem for him because his wife kept requesting him to kill Subhuti Roy. Finally, the Nawab sprinkled a little water on Subhuti Roy's head from a pitcher that had been used by a Muslim. Purport. 500 years ago in India, the Hindus were so rigid and strict that if a Muslim would sprinkle a little water from his pitcher upon a Hindu, the Hindu would be immediately ostracized. Whoa. Recently, in 1947, during the partition days, there was a big riot between Hindus and Muslims, especially in Bengal. The Hindus were forcibly made to eat cow's flesh, and consequently they began crying, thinking that they had become Muslims. Actually, the Muslims in India did not come from the country of the Muslims, but Hindus instituted the custom that somehow or other, if one contacted a Muslim, he became a Muslim. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were born in a high Brahmana family, but because they accepted employment under a Muslim government, they were considered Muslims. Subhuti Roy was sprinkled with water from the pitcher of a Muslim, and consequently, he was condemned to have become a Muslim. Later, Aurangzeb, the Muslim emperor, introduced a tax especially for Hindus. Being oppressed in the Hindu community, many low-caste Hindus preferred to become Muslims. In this way, the Muslim population increased. Later, the British government made it a policy to divide the Hindus and the Muslims, and thus they maintained ill feelings between them. The result was that India was divided into Pakistan and Hindustan. From early histories, it appears that the entire population, from early histories, it appeared that the entire earth was under one culture, Vedic culture. But gradually, due to religious and cultural divisions, the rule fragmented into many subdivisions. Now the earth is divided into many countries, religions, and political parties. Despite these political and religious divisions, we advocate that everyone should unite again under one culture, Krishna consciousness. People should accept one God, Krishna, one scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, and one activity, devotional service to the Lord. Thus people may live happily upon this earth and combine to produce sufficient food. In such a society, there would be no question of scarcity, famine, or cultural or religious degradation. So-called caste systems and national divisions are artificial. According to our Vaisñava philosophy, these are all external, bodily designations. The Krishna consciousness movement is not based upon bodily designations. It is a transcendental movement on the platform of spiritual understanding. If the people of the world understood that the basic principle of life is spiritual identification, they would understand that the business of the spirit soul is to serve the Supreme Spirit, Krishna. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 15:7, Mamai vangsho jiva loke jiva bhutak sanatanaha. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal, fragmental parts. All living entities in different life forms are sons of Krishna. Therefore, they are all meant to serve Krishna, the original Supreme Father. If this philosophy is accepted, the failure of the United Nations to unite all nations will be sufficiently compensated all over the world by a great Krishna consciousness movement. Recently we had talks with Christian leaders in Australia, including the Catholic Bishop of Melbourne, and everyone there was pleased with our philosophy of oneness in religious consciousness. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. 194. Taking the Nawabs, sprinkling water upon him, is an opportunity. Subhuti Roy left his family and business affairs and went to Väränasi. Purport. It appears that Subhuti Roy was a big landholder and a responsible, respectable gentleman. He could not, however, avoid the social misconception that one becomes a Muslim when water is sprinkled on one's face from a Muslim's pitcher. Actually, he was planning to give up his material life and leave his family. Hindu culture recommends 4 divisions: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Subhuti Roy was thinking of taking sannyas, and by the grace of Krishna, he received this opportunity. He therefore left his family and went to Väränasi. The system of Varnashram Dharma is very scientific. If one is directed by the Varnashram institution, he will naturally think of retiring from family life at the end of his life. Therefore, sannyas is compulsory at the age of 50. (195) When Subhuti Roy consulted the learned Brahmanas at Väränasi, asking them how his conversion to Islam could be counteracted, they advised him to drink hot ghee and give up his life. Hare Krishna. 196. When Subhuti Roy consulted some other Brahmanas, they told him that he had not committed a grievous fault, and that consequently he should not drink hot ghee and give up his life. As a result, Subhuti Roy was doubtful about what to do. Purport. This is another instance of Hindu custom. One Brahmana would give advice condoning a particular fault, and another would give advice to the contrary. Typically, lawyers and physicians differ, giving one kind of instruction and then another. Due to the Brahmana's different opinions, Subhuti Roy became further perplexed. He did not know what to do or what not to do. 197. In his state of perplexity, Subhuti Roy met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when the Lord was at Väränasi. Subhuti Roy explained his position and asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what he should do. 198. The Lord advised him, go to Vrindavan and chant the Hare Krishna mantra constantly. Purport. This is a solution to all sinful activities. In this age of Kali, everyone is perplexed by so many inconveniences, social, political, and religious, and naturally, no one is happy. Due to the contamination of this age, everyone has a very short life. There are many fools and rascals who advise people to adopt this way of life or that way of life, but real liberation from life's perplexities means preparation for the next life. Tatati hantara praptir, dhiras tatra namuyati. One should be situated in his spiritual identity and return home, back to Godhead. The simplest method for this is recommended herein by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We should constantly chant the Hare Krishna. We should constantly chant the holy names of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Krishna consciousness movement is recommending this process all over the world. We are saying, chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, be freed from all the complexities of life, and realize Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engage in His devotional service and perfect your life so that you can return home, back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further advised Subhuti Roy, begin chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and when your chanting is almost pure, all your sinful reactions will go away. After you chant perfectly, you will get shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Purport. 10 kinds of offenses should be considered. In the beginning, when one is initiated into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, there are naturally many offenses. Therefore, the devotee should very carefully try to avoid these offenses and chant purely. This does not mean that the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is sometimes pure and sometimes impure. Rather, the chanter is impure due to material contamination. He has to purify himself so that the holy names will be perfectly effective. Chanting the holy name of the Lord inoffensively will help one get immediate shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. This means that by chanting purely, one will immediately be situated on the transcendental platform. We should note, however, that according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions, one should not wait to purify himself before chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Whatever our condition may be, we should begin chanting immediately. By the power of the Hare Krishna mantra, we will gradually be relieved from all material contamination and will get shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, the ultimate goal of life. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And we'll stop here. It's just about 8 o'clock. We'll start tomorrow at text 200. How all the residents of Väränasi became Vaisñavas. What a chapter. Hare Krishna. Okay, any reflections? Any points that came out, stuck in your mind that you want to discuss, comment upon? Please, be our guest.
First, something from Yadutama.
Hare Krishna Yudutama.
He says, Dear Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. When you commented how the CC is sprinkled with verses from the Bhagavatam and Gita, I'm not sure if I remember verbatim what you said, but something along the lines that the CC gives us deeper realizations about these verses from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita.
What I said was that they put them into context in order to more deeply understand the basic philosophy of the Bhagavatam and the Gita. They put them into, you'll notice that there's verses from Bhagavatam chanted from all over the Bhagavatam in one particular place that makes the same point. And it ties the meanings together in such a way as they become very powerful and easier to accept. Therefore it is called the perfect scripture. Hare Krishna. No more comments? Wow. Amazing. Maybe I should keep reading. How many are online? 15. They're stunned. This last section of the glorification of the Bhagavatam and the meaning of our movement is stunning. Stunningly beautiful, stunningly powerful, stunningly clear, and therefore we have no reason to be in anxiety about anything. Brahma Bhutta Prasanatma Nashochati Nakangshati. We don't need to lament. We don't need to hanker for anything, because we have the goal of life right there in our hands in the form of the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta and the Bhagavatam and the Gita.
Yadutama says, Hare Krishna, that is wonderful.
Yes, it is. Actually, it is. It is wonderful. And it's wonderful, even more wonderful, that we are being given an opportunity from the backgrounds and, what we've done in this life to make ourselves ineligible. Still, Lord Chaitanya's mercy is so powerful that He's making us eligible. And all we have to do is to take it and embrace it.
There's a question on its way from Dayal.
Oh, I was hoping Dayal was there.
And Rati Manjari says, yes, please read some more.
Well, first we'll answer Dayal's question, see what happens.
She says, only if it suits you, Guru Maharaj. I am simply hungry.
Hare Krishna. Well, we just heard some pretty rich cuisine to satisfy your hunger.
Because I missed yesterday's reading.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, here it is from Dayal.
Okay, from Dayal.
He says, Dear Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. Hare Krishna, thank you. In recent times, various different groups conduct kirtan events where, amongst other mantras, the Hare Krishna mantra is sung. Although the participants may not be Vaisñava oriented, my question would be, Will they also be blessed with the results of chanting Harinam as just described?
They do, but then they do things that cover over the effect. And therefore they can't take it seriously. So when it says that by one chanting of a holy name, you can become liberated, or you can get to perfection, that's one inoffensive name, one pure name. So even though people are maybe innocent and chanting like that in those kinds of groups, those persons will make advancement and they will begin to chant and possibly join the movement, which gives shape to their life. It's harder to follow the instructions of these books without being in the association of the devotees. Therefore it says, Satam Pasangam Mama Virya Samvido, that the Bhagavatam, Gita, Caitanya-caritämrta, these books can only be understood properly in the association of devotees. So you have, that's one thing. The other thing is that if the persons who are chanting are ill-motivated or contaminated by Mayavad philosophy, then the chanting does not have the same effect. It's not actually the holy name that is coming. We heard recently that Shukadev Goswami, maybe it was today or yesterday, when Shukadev Goswami, when he spoke, the Bhagavatam became sweeter just by coming out of his mouth. By coming through him, it became sweeter. Even though he chanted exactly word for word what he heard from Vyasadeva. Didn't change anything. And yet it was sweeter. So that means that the effect of sound is dependent also on the consciousness of the speaker. So even if one is chanting Hare Krishna or giving discourse on the Bhagavatam, if they are sense gratifiers or if they're Mayavadis, then that sound becomes debilitated. It's not actually the holy name completely. Of course, the holy name is the holy name, but we can't perceive it. It's not exactly that the holy name becomes contaminated, but the consciousness of the chanter mixes and becomes just like water. Water is pure, but when it hits the ground, then it becomes muddy. But you can filter it out. You know, that you can say the water is muddy. The water is not muddy. The water is still pure, it's there. But you have to filter out what is the mud and the whatever, and then you have pure water again. So that's the sense. That's the sense in which we're recommended not to hear the holy name chanted by persons who are contaminated by sense gratification or by impersonal conceptions. But there will be some effect, but it will take a long time. It dilutes the effect of the holy name. Hare Krishna.
Nitai says, thank you for your clear and helpful explanation.
Hare Krishna.
And from Rati Manjari, she comments, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. One thing I found nice of tonight's reading is that Srila Prabhupada took upon his head the instruction of Lord Chaitanya to Srila Sanatana Goswami, that he should arrange for places to accommodate the poor devotees who came to visit Vrindavan Dham.
Yes, very nice point.
Srila Prabhupada so nicely facilitated his Western devotees in the holy dhams of Vrindavan and Mayapur, building comfortable guest houses for us and making it possible for us to enter these sacred places. He even wrote that the tourists that come to visit India should be accommodated as far as possible.
Yes. Absolutely. Now that's what I call reflection. That's what reflection is. To take the points that struck you and to repeat them and discuss them. It's very nice. Thank you, Rati.
She says, so broad-minded.
Yes. And wasn't it interesting how, the Hindu culture back in those days, was so rigid and so lame, that they would sometimes, tell a person who got sprinkled with some water that they should drink ghee and kill themselves. So crazy. That's one of the things that Lord Chaitanya came to break apart, that smarta brahmana, rigid. The rule is the master, the rule is everything. If you don't do like this, then you're finished, and all these things. So Lord Chaitanya gave freely, didn't he? Väränasi, they were all impersonalist, influenced at least by impersonalism, and yet he gave it for free. Remember? He gave it for free. Otherwise, I'd have to lug it all of my wares that he came to sell. He would have to lug it all back to home. So he decided to give it away for free. That's what he's doing. And that's what we should be doing. We may not be able to do it to the same degree or in the same wonderful way, but according to our capacity, we can do that by distributing these books, by going out in Harinam, by just keeping ourselves clean and neat and pure and in Krishna consciousness. And the atmosphere that surrounds us, that emanates from us, will purify people and give them some benefit, some agyati sukriti, some piety. This is the principle that spreads the Krishna consciousness movement. Hare Krishna.
Rati Manjari says, thank you, Guru Maharaj.
The pleasure is all mine, always. And now it's almost 8:15, so I think I'll stop here, give my voice a little rest. I've been talking all day. And I don't know what's going to happen when I start to do these recordings very seriously. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Thank you very much, everyone. So nice to be with you again and again every day. It's just as good and better every day. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same place, same station, same subject. Pure bliss. Hari Bol. See you tomorrow.